All right. Welcome back to the arena in the boardroom. I have a guest today, Damon Riddle, who is former contemporary, former coworker when we worked together at the YMCA, and is now currently the manager of visitor services with Meet Minneapolis. So I told you all I would have guests. I'm no longer shouting into a microphone by myself, and this is proof that people do like me and are willing to talk to me just a little bit. So, Damon, thank you for the validation and for being on the platform.
Happy to help. Absolutely. Especially the validation part.
Yeah, I mean that's why we do anything, right? It's purely for our own self-advancement, and we're here.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So,
There is no such thing as altruism. It's all about that.
absolutely not. So today, as always, we do a drink on the episode, and I have the guest choose the drink, and Damon chose the best drink of all. We are drinking high quality H2O water because hydration is important. Just for fun, I will include a recipe in the description just in case you need to know how to get some of your own. But we are going to kind of jump in and get things going. All right, Damon, you have been with Meet Minneapolis since, was it June you got there?
Yeah. Yeah. Middle of June.
How's it been going?
Really well. Very, very happy with the company. Very happy with the culture. The organization itself, Meet Minneapolis, is what's called the DMO, Destination Management Organization. They used to be called CVBs, or Convention and Visitor Bureaus. We're the DMO for Minneapolis. Our mission, our goal is the economic prosperity for the city itself. So the way we do that is we work with the convention center, actually internally in the convention center, as the sales team in the convention center, booking out events there to drive and to pull large size events into the city to be run through the convention center, which organically produces revenue for hotels, restaurants, different event venues, shops, everything that happen or that exist within Minneapolis. We're tasked with drawing those people in and those organizations in to, as I said, really promote and help the economy in Minneapolis prosper. The other side of what we do is also from the visitor perspective as well, just tourism, right? What I do is I run the visitor center in Minneapolis. So we're helping individuals that are coming to Minneapolis from out of town, whether it's in a neighboring city or it's a different state or even some other part of the world, to just get them information on what to do in Minneapolis, wayfind recommendations, either through kind of what the organization has curated as top 10 type recommendations for different types of things, or very personalized recommendations from the individuals that work within the visitor center, just based on their experiences and their knowledge within the city. So, and a lot of what that does is it also kind of helps release or lessen the tax burden of the residents that live there, because as more people are coming into the city and they're paying for that experience there, that's kind of helping, as I keep going back to, the economic prosperity of the city. But that also helps kind of lower the tax burdens of the residents there, because there's supplemental funds coming in to help kind of offset what they would normally have to pay for that. So what we do on the surface doesn't look like a lot, but when you really start to dig into it, we're really entrenched in everything that happens there in the city. And I'm really happy just to be a big part of that. And as I said, 2 months in, so I still got a lot to kind of learn and get through it, but I'm enjoying it. It was a long-winded answer to how's it going, but that's what you got.
Well, that's in a lot of ways that's ideal, right? I mean, you typically know, especially when you've done more than a few things like you know when it's going well. So to be a couple of months in to be able to say that many things, I think it's a positive indicator of where things can go in the future, especially in a place like Minneapolis.
Yeah, and it's I think that question is how's it going. Also, really, I have to take a step back and look at, well, why did I choose that? And there's a lot of alignment in missions and values that make me feel comfortable at this place, that make me feel welcomed at this place. That even 2 months into it, I not even 2 months into it, but add 2 months, just kind of still in that honeymoon phase. I'm not anticipating things going wrong. I'm not holding my breath and waiting for that other shoe to drop. I'm really excited about what the opportunities are for this organization and for me, because they align with my values and because their mission and because what they're trying to do for the city really align with what I want to do. So I do not expect it to change. I don't think anybody ever expects it to change, but I'm not expecting something awful or waiting for something to happen down the line here. I really think this is a good organization that I'm going to find some longevity with.
I love it. So you kind of beat me to what I was going to ask, but just knowing you, knowing what you've done, and kind of leading up to this, there is a trend, and you kind of mentioned that trend as it relates to people managing experience. I mean, we were engagement directors at the Y. You were with the Y a little bit before that in member engagement, going all the way down to working in customer service. So what is it about these type of roles that really attract you, that make you feel like not only could you be successful, but you're really contributing to something that you want to do?
That's a I wish that was a simple. I wish that was a simple answer on my part. I think it's more what attracts me to a role is the vision of the organization itself. I mean, I know what my competencies are. I know what my skill sets are, and I started in kind of a customer service role way back in the late '90s. Um, Working at a motorcycle dealership, and that's where I really honed and kind of started to shape what customer service, what that experience really was. Right, I think back then, and even till today, it's still called customer service, but it's more kind of an experience that you're really trying to impart on somebody. And as I've kind of moved through my career, that customer service piece has always been, or that customer experience piece has always really been at the core of what that is. And I know that there can be some arguments between, what is customer service versus what is customer experience. But I think that there is a marriage between the two at some point. They do have their differences, but if you're doing a Venn diagram, there's a centerpiece there that's really critical. And from my perspective, anywhere that I go, or any organization that I work for, I really want to find what those values are, and make sure that they kind of align with my values. And it's treating people well. It's treating everybody from the people that are purchasing your product to the people that work at the organization, treating them well, making sure that everybody has a sense of fulfillment and that their voices are heard, whichever side of the fence it is that they're on. So as I'm kind of looking for something or moving through my career, those are really the things that I'm really trying to find that I can align with. That element of, how do I feel about this, and do I really feel like what we're doing it kind of speaks to, if I was to own my own business, is this how I would do it? Is this how I would treat people? Is this the type of product that I would want to give out or sell to somebody?
Right. So when you see it from that perspective and you've done it at a high level, what does it or what should it not look like? And this is going to kind of transition a little bit into where we're going to go, but where are some areas that I guess places get that really wrong that you've seen?
Empathy and compassion. Um, you know, being able to understand who your customer is. And again, I always feel that my customer is everybody that I engage with. Again, whether they're purchasing a product from us or they're a coworker of mine. Because if they're coming to me for something, for a particular task or a particular function, that then makes them my customer. And in order for me to serve them well and to help them meet whatever it is they're trying to achieve, I have to have a little bit of compassion for that. I have to be able to listen to what it is they're trying to tell me. And sometimes it's empathy too, because if it's a problem that they're experiencing, how can I empathize with them? Hopefully I can empathize with them to see that through their perspective and try and help them get to where they need to get to, whatever that is. So I think that answers your question. I hope that answers your question.
No, it's a good transition into it because we're gonna go all the way back. And I know when we were working at the Y together as engagement directors, there were definitely some challenges as related to properly serving those customers. And I think you for sure, myself, and a bunch of others put a lot into it, probably sometimes more into it than we needed to. And I'll never forget the conversation we had. I don't think this was the first time that we talked, but It was early on where I asked directly if this was as hard as it was, or was I doing something wrong? And you pretty much just said, no, it's difficult, and it wasn't anything in particular. And then you went into a little bit of your own background, and you mentioned specifically one phrase that has stuck with me ever since: life work balance. Why is it life work balance and not work life balance for you?
And I'm glad you finished that with for you, because I think for me is not necessarily going to be what somebody else is necessarily looking for, right?
Hmm.
For me, it's I'm going to work to live and not live to work. I appreciate and value my free time. I appreciate and value the things that I can do outside of work, and I appreciate the delineation between my professional life and my personal life. That's health, that's prosperity, that's wellness to me. That's happiness. That's an emotional barrier that I like to have set up. And I know that there are people out there that don't see that kind of that line. They think that they're living more to work because that's where their heart and their passion is at. They're really invested in what they're doing. I am too, but I appreciate my time with my friends and my family. I appreciate being able to, at 5 o'clock, walk out of the door, and whatever I did or didn't accomplish that day, I know that I can pick up the next day. I don't have to take that home with me, and take it home with me. Whether it's a physical, I have to go home and answer emails, or it's just going to sit there in the back of my mind and bug me and bother me. I appreciate that delineation. That has helped me enrich my life with myself. That has helped me enrich my life with my wife. That has helped me enrich my life with my family and my friends. And I think it's important that an organization recognizes that and supports that too. To constantly have we have a work hard, play hard kind of mentality, or if you're on time, you're late. If you're early, you're on time. I don't think that an organization should necessarily be demanding that of its employees or of its staff, because that's unfair. Your organization or your work shouldn't occupy and take up that much of your life or that much of your interest, unless you're generally owning your own business and you are responsible for the outcome of that. And if that's the case, and that's your prosperity, then in some ways that is your live to work kind of thing. But if you're just punching a clock, or you're showing up to support something, give everything that you can while you're there, but allow yourself that time when you're not there. And that's very, very important to me. And that was something that I had to learn after my first real big career at a large automotive and motorcycle company. That I had to figure out how to draw that line, because it created this. I didn't feel good inside. I didn't feel like what I was leaving when I left the office. I wasn't really leaving the office. I was taking everything home with me. And I didn't have the ability to step outside of that workspace and into my own personal space and have time for myself. It occupied every aspect of my being. Granted, that job was a fantastic job for me, because it taught me a lot that I needed to learn to help me be kind of the employee, the professional that I am today. And it also taught me that how to identify when I needed that space and why I needed that space. But that's essentially where that kind of stemmed from. That happened around 2012, 2013. It took me a long time to come to that realization. And it's something that I can easily see in other people when we start talking about their job or what they're doing. I can easily see when it's really starting to burden and bog down their life, and it affects you. I mean, the reason you and I had this conversation is because it was affecting you. It was affecting you personally. It was affecting your health and your wellness. Job shouldn't do that to a person ever. And that's why we had that conversation.
Yeah. And it's continuing on in a lot of different mediums. And you would think, I mean, you mentioned that was 2012. We're 10 years past that now. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I'm newer, obviously, in recognizing this, and hopefully I've recognized it early enough on that I can try to pass on that message. I know you and I have had conversations with similar people as it relates to when is it time to to make those decisions for yourself? Is it becoming too much? Have you seen, I guess in those 10 years, you're more aware of it for yourself, but have you seen changes, positive changes or negative changes that have kind of related to this, that phenomenon?
I have absolutely, in understanding COVID and the pandemic, that's an anomalous piece, right? I mean, that's something in our lifetime that others might not necessarily have seen or experienced, and I think that has contributed to a bit of what that your question was, because I have seen organizations that have established and built a culture of when you need your time, you need your personal time. Please take your personal time. And I've seen individuals who hear that message, but they don't practice that message. And I feel like sometimes it's really on the onus of the manager or the leadership team to at least recognize that that's happening and really take steps or try to impress upon the staff, hey, it's very important to us for your health and for your well-being here at work, for you to kind of find that line in the sand where it's your personal versus your work life. And I don't know that a lot of organizations do that. They say that they do that, right? They put that in their manuals. But is that necessarily what leadership is doing? Is that what the manager is necessarily doing? I sometimes I've seen that and sometimes I don't, right? So I don't necessarily know that that's a mission problem. I think that's more a cultural problem and a disconnect somewhere within the organization. But I have seen, I guess to answer your question, yes, I have seen a bit of that change. I have seen a bit of more organizations pushing that kind of concept or that idea forward. But in that same kind of vein, I've also seen where leadership within those organizations aren't necessarily supporting it or recognizing as well. They may say that, but then they also see that their staff is just really stressed out, really overworked, but they're either not taking the time to just kind of have that conversation with somebody about, I really need you to take more time for yourself, or they're just looking at it as, well, there's a lot of productivity here, so why am I going to mess with that? And I'm not pointing fingers at any one organization,
Right.
because again, I don't think it's an organizational problem. I think it's the individual that's responsible for that leadership that may be causing that problem.
Yeah, I mean, we put a lot of worth on the things we probably shouldn't. We put a lot of worth on our ability to work a job. I mean, notice that's the first question that anybody asks somebody, right? Is what do you
Mm,
do for work? And it takes a conscious reframing of it to be able to change and to want to do it. And while there are some organizations that definitely do it better than others, um, obviously direct management, they're the ones that are there. If you're high enough up on the food chain, you're not paying attention to it. So it's that dynamic of protecting people from themselves. And I know that you talked about this a ton in your last position too, was not expecting too much of people. I mean, what did people make as front desk staff when we were there? 15, 16 an hour,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Something along those lines. Like you can only ask individuals to do so much if they're getting paid like that. And you have to be the one, if you're in that position of authority, to put those barriers in place for them, because people, I think for the most part, want to be successful and do their job well. And sometimes they can go overboard if there's no one there to stop them. And I think that layer of protection is missing a ton in a lot of these spaces.
yeah. I agree. And another way to also look at that is it's almost a mentor perspective as well, right? The reason I'm the type of manager that I am today is because I wanted to be the type of manager that I don't feel that I ever really had. I mean,
Mhm.
there's one director that I reported to several years ago. Absolutely fantastic, and he was essentially the model for who I wanted to become. But our time together was very brief because I was transitioning in. We were together for maybe 4 or 5 months, and then he was transitioning out. And just during that brief time period, he made such an impact on me that I thought that's the way it should be done. That's a level of respect that supersedes any position, any organizational chart, right? And so when I stepped into a role where I was managing staff at the front desk staff, I wasn't just trying to be kind of respective of their time, but I was also taking that from a mentor position as well. Because if these are going to potentially become leaders of tomorrow, let's help them see what good leadership looks like. Let's build that toolkit for them. It isn't just here's how you do customer service, here's how you engage with people, here's how you operate the programs that we have. There's also a leadership style. And if we want successful leaders, we need to be able to be that successful leader for somebody and show them that it isn't just demand, 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 demand. It's your input's valuable to me. You have a place at the table. And I recognize what your position is and what your roles and your responsibilities are. And I'm going to interject or supersede at times when I feel that you're perhaps maybe stepping over those, not because I don't want growth. I absolutely want growth if you want to take on new tasks and new projects. But if there's certain things that dealing with troublesome issues, individuals that are standing at the front that are screaming and yelling about something or something along those lines, I'm going to step in and help out in those regards. Because one, I think I'm more equipped, and two, I can show you the right way to handle these types of situations. I can show you how to handle these situations, not only from that engagement side with the customer, but also how you handle that engagement side with the employee as well. So I think that mentorship is a very critical piece to that too.
So we're gonna go back, right? You talked a little bit about your time working the motorcycles, and the other inflection point we're going to touch on in just a sec. But going back to when was that time? When was that point? Because rarely do people leave a situation when things are going really well, unless there's extenuating circumstances. When it came to when 2012 hit, and you were at the point where I needed to get out of the position where I was in, what was the lead up to that point? When did you really start feeling I need to find myself out of here, and just kind of what was going through your head at that time?
Several years actually prior to that, the just the burdens of the job, the position itself. And again, I want to preface this by saying that it was a fantastic opportunity for me. But looking at it more from the when did you start making those kinds of decisions, it really started happening several years before that. Just because I was looking at fulfillment. Was I properly engaged? Was I feeling fulfilled? Was I feeling that job satisfaction? I was learning a lot, but the experience itself, from an enrichment perspective, wasn't quite there for me personally. And I didn't leave that position in 2012. I was forced out of that position. I was forced out of that position because that section or that portion of the organization completely just shuttered its business. So it laid off an entire division. Prior to that, I was looking and trying to find, well, what's my next thing? What's my next thing? What am I going to do? But I was also hanging on thinking there's probably going to be some type of a severance that I'm going to get out of this. So maybe it's just worth holding on through the mess of this until I get that. Right. So that was the choice and the direction that I took. I wish that I hadn't. I wish that I'd actually done something to find a job, that would have matched my needs and helped me feel a little bit better about myself. And I think that's kind of a key statement there too, is going through just a lot of that, working in an organization that is winding down its operations, that you can feel it. They're not necessarily announcing it, but you can feel it because there's restructuring, there's people being cut, there's departments being cut, there's work being pushed into new departments. And I had that happen to me, as several of my coworkers had that happen to them. It was difficult for me, young, working in my first corporate environment. I really wasn't able to separate the here's what I'm worth to here's what I should be going out and to do. Right. I was having a hard time understanding that. And it was difficult for me to speak highly of myself because I just didn't feel that internally, because I was so worn down at the job. I didn't have the emotional tools ready. I didn't have the professional tools ready for me to figure out how to step outside of that. I was just kind of hanging on for what's the next thing? What's the next thing? Maybe an opportunity will fall into my lap, rather than me having the self-confidence to go out and look for it. 2012, that forced me to do that just by default because I didn't have a job anymore. I took a little bit of reprise to just kind of think about where I was at in my life, think about really what I wanted, and kind of rebuild myself internally and rebuild that self-confidence. And when I was able to do that, it just accelerated and excelled for me at that point. And I use that as a frame of reference for everything else that I started to do in my life. I didn't want to be in a position where I just felt that way. I wanted to be in a different position where I felt better about myself. I felt better about the work that I was doing. And if I didn't feel good about the work that I was doing, then that was the key to me to be, well, can I change my work environment? And if I can't change my work environment, then I have to change my work.
Then we fast forward, right? We are now in 2021. You got it, but you were at the Y, I think, a couple
Was
months
it?
before me, I think.
Yep. I actually started out there as a contractor
Yep.
for them,
That was
working
the
up in their
COVID, right?
association offices. That was pre-COVID. Yeah.
Yep.
And then my contract ended as everybody else's did in March of 2020.
Mhm.
And they then contacted me in mid 21, letting me know about these new positions they created at the branch level. Would I be interested in it? And the scope of the position itself fit right into my wheelhouse. It also fit right into where I was at emotionally at the time too. I mean, everybody was coming off of that
Mhm.
situation, and I had an emotional vacuum that I just needed to fill. And working with people, working with community, that was going to do it for me, and it absolutely did too. I was happy I did that.
So what was the point then? I mean, we had plenty of conversations. We formed our fun little group chat that we still continue on to this day with a couple of others, both still there and now no longer.
Hmm.
But what got you to the point where you had to move on? And a little bit of a multi-layered question here because I think we've seen in recent times that um, people aren't sticking around at the same place as long as they used to. I think you were with your longest tenured spot, 14 years,
Yep.
right? Was with
Yeah.
Suzuki.
Yeah.
And then other work, and then we get here, engagement director on paper sounds fancy, right? Something that you could settle in and be into. But what in 2 years, what happened that it made you think, you know what, maybe it's time for something different?
It, it it's a number of things, but I would say the one that sticks out the most is just opportunity for me. The stepping stone for me, that wasn't the position that I was going to live and die in, right? I was going to do something other than that. Um, that role that I stepped into was a great opportunity for me, as I said, to serve the community and to try and be part of something that I think was going to be coming out of the pandemic, right? Business had to change. Everything had to change. It wasn't just, well, we're going to go back to the way things were. No, things had to change. And I wanted to be a little bit a part of that. But I also wanted and hoped that at some point I could get back to what I was doing as a contractor with the YMCA. Because that's really where my career goals were at. This was just an opportunity for me to stay close to it from a relationship perspective, and also make sure that I had some income coming in at the time too. So there could be difference of opinions, from the direction the organization was going, and that kind of things. But that's not something that I feel like I should have a seat at the table in. Honestly, it's a large organization. They've got a lot of moving pieces. I'm just one tiny little element in there, and my main reason for leaving the organization was it was just career opportunity. There wasn't something else that I was going to be able to transition into where I was going to feel that level of fulfillment, where I was going to feel like I was really stretching my skill set to its maximum limits, to really help kind of excel and move everything forward. That opportunity just didn't exist there, which is not to say that that's a problem with the organization itself. That was just their structure, the things that I want to do with myself, that just wasn't there. So it was when I really started to kind of come to, now's probably starting to get a good time for me. The market's changing, things are opening back up, businesses are starting to thrive again. I know where those opportunities are for me. Let's start looking in that direction. And that was really what it was.
Well, that's just as important as any other reason, right? I mean, a lot of times people stay in a situation and wait for something that might be showing up. And if you're waiting for something to show up, other opportunities might pass you by.
Yeah.
It's equally, regardless of if you're leaving for other reasons. Not an easy decision to just make, especially given the work that you did. You built relationships with your team, others in the community. You get to know people on a first name basis and in a lot of personal ways in the positions that we had. Um, but when it finally came down to it, what was the feeling, right? You've accepted this new position. You are leaving a place that I think all of us that left, maybe a little bit of unfinished business, a little bit of sadness, disappointment that it wasn't ridden out to the end. But what was the thought process and the feeling, knowing that you were going on to something else?
It, it was hard. It was hard coming to that decision even before finding that job, knowing that I was looking for something. And as I was starting to look, that thought in the back of my head is, are you really going to miss this place? Are you going to miss the impact that you may be having? Are you going to miss the relationships that you've built, the people that you've connected with, both from a member perspective and from a staff and a team perspective? And the answer was absolutely yes, which made it more important for me to really find whatever that next thing was going to be. It had to surpass what I was doing before in engagement, satisfaction, and in feelings. Right? I felt valued. I did feel a worth and a value at the YMCA. So it wasn't that I wasn't feeling that, but I knew that whatever I was going to do next had to make sure that I wasn't leaving or creating a void in that, right, in those relationships, in those connections, and that community support that turned out to really very surprising to me, mean very much to me. And the next role that I took, with Meet Minneapolis, I'm literally a block away from the YMCA. I'm still very much connected to the individuals that are in the community because I pass them almost daily, a couple times a day as I'm transitioning between. I have two offices that I report. One's at the headquarters, which is a few blocks away, and then the visitor center, and the YMCA is right in the middle. So I still manage to see those people. I still actually am part of community events. I was just volunteering this past weekend at the Street Art Festival and seeing a lot of people. And in all honesty, I still pick up I still am on part-time status at the YMCA because I still want to see these people. I still want to connect with them. I still want to be a part of that culture. Granted, it's only, a 2-hour shift a month or something like that, but that still allows me to feel that connection a little bit. So I'm still feeding kind of my emotional well-being that way, and haven't quite let that go. And I don't know that I plan to let that go. But at my new company, I'm also able to feel that, and so I'm actually kind of doubling down on what I was doing before, and that feels fantastic. I feel great about that.
That's awesome. So, all right, we've got just a couple more, and then we'll let you enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Somebody is going through something similar, right? Somebody is debating of whether or not it's time for them to start looking at something new. Um, and they ask you for advice. What are you telling them?
Oh, well, I want to say find what makes you happy,
Mhm.
and find where you're going to feel the most engaged and fulfilled. And that's not a unique thought. I'm not the first person to come up with that. I mean, there's studies that actually support that. That's kind of what drives happiness and pleasure and connection. Um, but that's hard to do sometimes too, because if I go back to where I was at in 2012, it's hard to kind of distill your feelings down to that, right? Because maybe you're in an environment that is the culture's not working for you. I don't want to use the word toxic, but maybe it's just there are things that aren't working that fit your needs. The staff, the product, the service, the culture itself is just really bothering you. And if you've been invested in that, I'm somebody, if I'm going to work for a place, I'm going to really invest my time and my energy in that. Because if I'm there, I want to see that place succeed, because if it succeeds, then I succeed. So if that's what you're doing, sometimes it's hard to really separate yourself from that. It's like you're in a relationship, and if you've ever broken up with somebody or had somebody break up with you, that's kind of the same feeling. You don't just kind of go, okay, well, this is cool. I guess I won't see you anymore. I'm going to go back to my own life now. That separation doesn't happen that easily. There's an anchor and a lot of baggage that comes with that. And I think when you're looking at that, someone's asking that question of me, it's well, what made you happy before you started this role? Where was that excitement before you jumped into this? What was that promise, that aspiration that you had? What do you like about what you do today? How would you like to carry that forward in your next role? And it might be something completely different, but I think if you really just are able to take a step back and look at it, what is going to make you feel enriched, make you feel valued, make you feel worthy, and make it feel like what you are contributing actually carries merit. That's a lot to really try and digest when maybe you don't know a lot about the next organization that you're stepping into, right? Maybe you're just looking at them on their webpage and reading about the position, and you're looking at their values, but you don't know anybody there. So it's hard to kind of get that feedback and that input. So it's a chance, but I think critically, that's the question that you have to ask yourself. And that's what I would always tell somebody is, what is it that you want to do next that's going to bring you that sense of happiness and that sense of accomplishment?
I don't think I can come up with a follow-up to that one. That might be the cap. That's a win. That's good stuff. No, this is great. I appreciate it. You're also our first guest. I don't know if I mentioned that at the beginning, but
Good. It's only upwards from here then.
First guest. So the bar is high. And
that's kind.
We're gonna kind of keep this thing rolling, but this is awesome, and I appreciate it. A lot of great insights, and yeah, we'll obviously we'll talk in other aspects beside this. And if you had a great time, we'll come on and discuss other stuff. Again, we have no rules here.
Yeah.
Except the ones we set ourselves.
I appreciate the opportunity. This was fantastic. Thank you for letting me talk ad nauseum just about myself and my experiences. It's almost my favorite topic.
Hey, it's better than me shouting into a microphone and talking about other stuff. And also, I mean, this whole space is designed to inform. So if anyone can get perspective out of it, I think that itself is a win, and we can move this whole thing forward. So again, I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.